Get out! You're fired. Pregnancy has no place here. Please, I'm still capable. Take your box and leave.
The day I discovered I was pregnant should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day my entire world collapsed. My name is Amara Johnson. At that time, I worked as an administrative officer at one of the fastest growing fashion companies in Lagos. The office sat in a busy part of Victoria Island where traffic never slept, horns competed with street vendors, and everyone rushed as though every minute carried money. I held my hospital appointment card tightly inside my handbag. My heart was full. I could already imagine telling my husband that evening. I even caught myself smiling inside the office lift. But happiness has a strange way of attracting trouble. Our managing director, Mrs. Vivian Roberts, had one belief. She never announced it in meetings. She never wrote it in company policy. She simply believed pregnant women slowed businesses down. Whenever an employee announced a pregnancy, some mysterious problem suddenly appeared with her job. That morning, as I reached for a document, the doctor's appointment card slipped halfway out of my handbag. Mrs. Vivian walked past. Her eyes landed on it immediately. She smiled. Not the kind smile that warmed your heart, the kind that made your stomach tighten. By lunchtime, security officers were already waiting outside my office. By evening, I stood outside the gate carrying a small cardboard box with my coffee mug, family photograph, and one lonely office plant that was already dying. Rain clouds gathered over Lagos. Cars rushed past without noticing me. My phone vibrated. It was my husband asking, "How did your day go?" I stared at the screen. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I did not know my answer would change both of our lives forever. And 3 months later, the woman who destroyed my career would unknowingly arrive at my doorstep looking for a place to live. Before everything changed, I truly loved my job. Every morning, the office came alive before 9 a.m. Someone always arrived carrying hot meat pies. Another person claimed their mother's jollof rice could defeat every other recipe in Nigeria. The argument became so serious that one Friday, 2 colleagues brought lunch boxes just to settle the debate. Even the security guards became judges. One accountant dramatically requested drinking water between bites as though he was on a television cooking competition. The laughter echoed through the office. It made long working hours feel shorter. Someone always forgot their lunch. Someone else always accidentally remembered everyone else's snacks. Every Friday ended with birthday cakes, loud music, countless selfies, and enough gossip to keep the office alive until Monday. Only one person never smiled, Mrs. Vivian Roberts. She believed laughter reduced productivity. Whenever she stepped out of her office, conversations died instantly. The office became so quiet that even the printers sounded nervous. One afternoon, I finally gathered enough courage to tell the human resources officer about my pregnancy. I smiled shyly. "I am not ready for everyone to know yet. Please keep it between us." She warmly promised she would. Unfortunately, news traveled through that office faster than Lagos traffic rumors spread on WhatsApp. Before the afternoon closed, my boss already knew. And the way she looked at me from across the office made me realize that my happiest secret had suddenly become my greatest danger. The following morning, the office felt strangely quiet. Even the people who normally laughed over breakfast kept stealing nervous glances at me. I tried to ignore them. I switched on my computer, opened my emails, and told myself everything would be fine. Then, my office phone rang. "Mrs. Vivian would like to see you." My heartbeat quickened. I picked up my notebook and walked toward her office. She did not ask me to sit. Instead, she folded her arms and looked at me as though I had committed a terrible crime. "So, Amara, you are pregnant?" I smiled politely. "Yes, ma." Then came the questions. "Can you still handle pressure? How many hospital appointments will you be asking for? Who will complete your reports when you are tired?" Each question felt less like concern and more like a judgment. I answered calmly. "I can still perform all my duties." She simply nodded. No smile, no congratulations, no emotion. The next morning, a white envelope waited on my desk. My hands trembled as I opened it. Position declared redundant. I read the sentence again and again. Redundant? How? Just 2 days later, another woman was already sitting in my chair, arranging family photographs on the same desk that had been mine. The entire office understood what had happened. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared question Mrs. Vivian. Fear was part of the company's dress code. I quietly packed my files, my little office plant, and my coffee mug shaped like a tiny sewing machine. As I walked toward the gate, one elderly cleaner stopped mopping the floor. She looked into my eyes and whispered softly, "Do not cry, my daughter. God sees everything." I forced a smile, but the tears refused to obey. Little did I know, life was already preparing an unbelievable twist that not even the best Nollywood scriptwriter could have imagined. Life became difficult almost overnight. My husband, David Johnson, worked as a delivery driver in Lagos. Every morning, he battled the endless traffic on 3rd Mainland Bridge, praying his motorcycle would not develop a fault before sunset. His income barely covered our rent, food, and hospital bills. Some evenings, we counted every naira on the dining table. Then we laughed anyway. If we can survive Lagos traffic, we can survive anything, David would joke. His jokes always made me smile, even when my heart was heavy. Our small apartment was far from luxurious. The ceiling fan made funny noises. The neighbor's rooster behaved like an alarm clock with no off button. And every weekend, someone nearby organized a party loud enough for the entire street to attend without an invitation. Still, our little home was filled with peace. Then one evening, David rushed through the front door with excitement written all over his face. "I have unbelievable news!" I thought he had won the lottery. Instead, he handed me a bundle of documents. His late aunt had left him a modest block of flats in Akure, along with a small savings account meant for renovations. The building was not fancy. There was no swimming pool, no sparkling elevators, but it was neat, it was well cared for, and kind families already lived there. After a few weeks of careful planning, we relocated and renovated the remaining empty apartments. I became the property manager while preparing for the arrival of our baby. For the first time since losing my job, hope quietly knocked on our door again. But hundreds of kilometers away in Lagos, Mrs. Vivian's perfect life was beginning to fall apart. Meanwhile, things were no longer going smoothly at my former company in Lagos. The same office that once buzzed with confidence slowly became filled with whispers. Big business deals collapsed one after another. Important customers took their contracts elsewhere. Investors stopped believing in the company. Even the reception area, once crowded with visitors, became unusually quiet. People began saying the company had lost its magic. The truth was simple. Mrs. Vivian had ignored experienced employees. She fired many loyal workers who had spent years building the business. She believed she knew everything. Unfortunately, business had other plans. Within a few weeks, the board of directors held an emergency meeting. This time, Mrs. Vivian was the one sitting nervously across the table. The decision was swift. She was dismissed. Just like that. No long speech, no second chance. Her official company house was taken back. Her luxury car disappeared. The designer lifestyle she proudly displayed vanished almost overnight. Friends who once invited her to glamorous Lagos parties suddenly became too busy to answer her calls. Life became painfully quiet. For the first time in years, she needed something she had never imagined needing: an affordable place to live. She contacted an estate agent. She had no idea the next address on her journey would bring her face to face with the woman she had once thrown out of her office without mercy. One bright Saturday afternoon, I was inspecting one of our vacant apartments. The compound was alive, just like every Lagos-style neighborhood should be. Children were chasing a football that somehow landed inside a bucket of freshly washed clothes. An elderly woman stood outside frying puff-puff, and the sweet smell floated through the air. Two tenants were playfully arguing over whose generator made the loudest noise. Even the estate security guard was laughing as he tried to separate the children from the football. I smiled. For the first time in a long while, life felt peaceful. Then, a yellow taxi rolled slowly through the gate. It stopped right in front of the empty apartment. A woman stepped out wearing oversized dark sunglasses and carrying only 2 suitcases. She looked tired. Very different from the elegant executive who once walked through our office like she owned the world. At first, I simply watched. Then she removed her sunglasses. My heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Vivian Roberts. She looked at me without recognition. The estate agent hurried over with his usual cheerful smile. "Good afternoon. Meet our property manager, Mrs. Amara Johnson." Mrs. Vivian turned toward me again. This time, she looked carefully, very carefully. The color drained from her face. Her mouth slowly fell open. For several long, uncomfortable seconds, nobody said a word. Even the children seemed to pause their football match. Finally, the estate agent laughed awkwardly. "Oh, wonderful! It seems you two already know each other." I looked calmly at Mrs. Vivian and gave a gentle smile. "Yes, we used to work together." The silence that followed was louder than every generator in the compound. Mrs. Vivian lowered her eyes. For the first time since I had known her, she looked nervous. Gone was the confident woman who once gave orders without blinking. She took a deep breath. I need somewhere quiet to stay while I rebuild my life." Her voice was softer than I had ever heard her. She glanced at me and managed a weak smile. "I understand if you don't want me here." The estate agent looked from her to me. He had no idea there was enough history between us to fill an entire Nollywood movie. I quietly picked up the tenancy agreement from the table. Then I placed it in front of her. "You can have the apartment." She stared at me in disbelief. "You mean you're renting it to me?" I nodded. "Yes. But the rules are the same for everyone. No late rent, no disturbing your neighbors, and everyone deserves respect." She blinked several times. It was almost as if she was waiting for me to embarrass her the way she had embarrassed me months earlier. But I didn't. There was no revenge, no harsh words, no public humiliation. She slowly signed the agreement. Her hands trembled as she held the pen. When I handed her the apartment's keys, our fingers briefly touched. Neither of us spoke. The woman who once instructed security officers to escort me out of my office was now collecting the keys to her new home from the same woman she believed had no future. Neither of us knew that the people living in that lively compound were about to change both of our lives in ways we never expected. Life inside the compound was never quiet. Every evening felt like a small community festival. The children turned the open space into a football stadium. Every match ended with someone shouting that the referee was unfair, even though there was no referee. One little boy insisted he was the next Super Eagles captain. Another claimed he was only losing because his slippers were not designed for speed. The adults laughed until tears filled their eyes. An elderly widow, Mama Sade, had only one mission in life. She wanted everyone to taste her homemade puff-puff. If you walked past her door, she would appear as if by magic. Just one. The one somehow became 6. Nobody ever escaped. Mrs. Vivian watched all of this from her balcony during her first few days. She was not used to neighbors greeting each other with such warmth. Slowly, she began saying good morning. Then she started attending compound meetings. Soon, she found herself laughing at the children's endless football drama. One afternoon, I walked across the compound carrying my newborn daughter in my arms. Mrs. Vivian saw us. She froze. Then she slowly walked towards me. Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Amara. I wasn't sorry because I lost my job. I became sorry when I finally understood the pain I caused you." The compound suddenly became quiet. Even the children stopped arguing over their football. I looked at her, then at my daughter sleeping peacefully in my arms. Before I could answer, a loud scream echoed from one of the apartments. Something had gone terribly wrong. The scream sent everyone running. Doors flew open. Neighbors rushed into the corridor. It was Mrs. Kemi, one of the tenants. She had gone into labor. Her husband was trapped in heavy traffic after a delivery outside town. Panic spread through the compound. One person was searching for car keys. Another was looking for the hospital card. Someone kept saying, "Stay calm," while looking more frightened than everyone else. Then, to everyone's surprise, Mrs. Vivian stepped forward. "Everyone, listen to me." Her voice was calm, confident. She quickly assigned people different tasks. "You, bring her hospital bag. You, call the doctor. You, help me support her." Within minutes, a car was ready. Mrs. Vivian climbed in beside Mrs. Kemi and held her hand all the way to the hospital. She stayed there for hours. She encouraged the frightened mother. She comforted the anxious husband when he finally arrived. And when the baby's first cry filled the delivery room, Mrs. Vivian smiled through tears. Back at the compound, everyone could hardly believe what they were hearing. The same woman who was treated pregnancy like a burden had spent an entire day caring for a woman she barely knew. The children joked that Auntie Vivian has become everybody's emergency captain. Even Mrs. Vivian laughed. She shook her head and said, "Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons." But the biggest lesson of all was still waiting for both of us. Months passed. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Our compound remained as lively as ever. Every weekend, someone organized a small get-together. The children still played football until their mothers called them home. Mama Sade still chased everyone with trays of hot puff-puff, proudly insisting her recipe deserved an award. Even Mrs. Vivian had become part of the family. One sunny afternoon, she came to my office with exciting news. She had been offered a new job. This time, it was with a company that respected families and believed employees could build successful careers without sacrificing their homes. She smiled. I asked them one question during the interview. I raised an eyebrow. What was it? How do you treat pregnant employees? We both laughed. A few weeks later, before moving out, Mrs. Vivian organized a farewell gathering for everyone in the compound. Neighbors brought food. Children decorated the courtyard with colorful balloons. The atmosphere felt like a family celebration. Mrs. Vivian stood before everyone, holding the microphone with trembling hands. Then she looked directly at me. Amara, you had every reason to embarrass me. You had every reason to make me suffer. But instead, you gave me dignity when I had none left. The compound became completely silent. I smiled warmly. Kindness is much easier to carry than revenge. A loud round of applause broke out. Even the children clapped so hard that one little boy almost dropped his bottle of soft drink. Then Mrs. Vivian walked towards me with one final surprise. A surprise that left everyone speechless. Mrs. Vivian reached into her handbag and brought out a small wrapped box. She placed it gently in my hands. "It's for your daughter," she said with a smile. I opened it slowly. Inside was a beautiful silver baby bracelet with a tiny engraved message. Always choose kindness. My eyes filled with tears. So did hers. The entire compound became quiet. Then Mama Sade broke the silence. She wiped her eyes and laughed. "Now somebody should please bring Puff Puff before all of us start crying." Everyone burst into laughter. Even the children laughed without fully understanding why. As I looked around, I realized something. The day I lost my job had felt like the end of my life. But it had quietly become the beginning of something far greater. If Mrs. Vivian had never dismissed me, David and I might never have moved. We might never have managed those apartments. We might never have built a peaceful life surrounded by people who truly cared for one another. And Mrs. Vivian might never have discovered that compassion is far more powerful than authority. Sometimes, the door that closes is not there to punish you. It is there to lead you to a better one. And sometimes, the person who once looked down on you will one day stand before you again. Not to be humiliated, but to learn the value of humility, grace, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Never repay cruelty with cruelty. Kindness has a way of changing lives, including your own. And if you enjoyed this emotional Lagos story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Elodie Tales for more unforgettable Nigerian stories filled with drama, laughter, and life lessons.